Hello fellow base hunters, my name is 9XC, and welcome to a new tier list. I'm doing ultimate tier list this time around, and this one I'm actually going to be uploading two of these. This one's going to be based off of team fights, like when you go in a 6v6 and you just pop ults. These are like ultimates that change. Let's just say you only have one of these. These are how much they would affect the game. And with that, we're going to start with the healers, starting with Ana, which I believe is impactful. Reason being is Nano Boost is very strong, especially if you give it to Orion or a tank. But most of the time, it's just used with a combo of an ult. Or not based on this. Next up is Mercy. This is just like impact. I think it's honestly somewhat impactful. It's definitely unnoticeable, and I think this is actually one of the most underrated ultimates in the game. And this one can either be a saving grace or just a complete waste, depending on how you use it. And we are done with Mercy, and we're gonna move to Transcends, which in my is impactful. This is definitely a very good ultimate, and actually lets your team stay alive for quite a while. The downside to it, and the reason why it's not game changing, is because there are destructive ults that counter it, and if enough damage is done at once, it can kill the people, such as a Widowmaker headshot on squishies. And with that, we are going to go to Colossus. And next up, we are doing Moria's ultimate, which is, in my opinion, somewhat impactful. This ultimate requires a lot of skill to use, and I do see a lot of people use it wrong. They use it for DPSing when realism this ultimate actually is kind of a mini Transcendence in a way with its healing output. And with that, we are just going to move on to Lucio. Lucio's ultimate is absolutely game changing. This ultimate literally can counter almost every single destructive ult in the game. Like, there's been so many times where, let's say, a Deadeye is popped, or Genji's Dragon Blade is popped, or Sigma's ult is popped. And that Lucio barrier basically protects and saves the team. That's why I think it's absolutely game changing. Next up is Rally, the first one to go in the situational like category. This one is absolutely situational. Like, Brig, in my opinion, is just situational. She's only good in brawl comps, nothing more. And this ultimate really doesn't do what Transcendence does or Mercy's ult. This ultimate is basically just oh cool, more armor, which can be big, but most of the time it's countered by damage. And with that, we are done with the healers. Next up, it's the tanks, which is Diva's ult, which is gonna make my friend Lucky mad, but I honestly think it's situational. Now, don't get me wrong, this ultimate is probably one of the most dangerous ultimates in the game. Without a doubt, in the game, most dangerous. However, this ultimate does get countered a lot by just one thing, a barrier. Now, if you're fighting a team that has no barrier, you're absolutely gonna. If it was based off no barriers whatsoever, this would be game changing. But considering that just one Ryan boy can absolutely just ruin your day, not to mention Lucio's ult. There's a lot. Now that I think about it, a lot of things counter Diva's ult. That's why I think it's honestly situational. Next up is Roadhog's ultimate. And just like Roadhog in comp, he's fucking useless. Real talk, if you're in a close space, this ultimate's amazing. But besides that, you're not gonna kill anyone, and all you're gonna do is just push them away. I mean, if you're at the end of the point and you're about to push the cart last second or capture the point last second, this ultimate would be game changing. But we're basing this off team fights, and Roadhog ult does more harm than actually good for his team. And with that, we're gonna move on. Next up is Winston. Just like Diva's all, it's pretty situational. Like this ultimate team fight just knocks people around, doesn't really kill them, and honestly, that can make your hit scans life's hell if a Winston is just booping everyone across the map and making it harder for DPS to land hits. So it's pretty situational. Next up is Hammond. This one is actually pretty impactful. Hammond's ultimate straight up denies a certain part of the map. So if you there's only one corridor to go through and Hammond pops his ult, that basically counters the entire team. For instance, let's do what's good? Oh, Lunar Colony. Let's say that they're going top right and they want to do the fight there. Hammond's ultimate straight up just denies like push. And not only that, if you ground slam and all, basically this is a wrap for the team in a team fight. Then again, Hammond doesn't really fight with his team. He's more of a flanker than anything. Next up is Zarya's ultimate, and this is absolutely game changing if used correctly. A good Zarya ult basically guarantees a win team fight. Now, I am basing this off Diamond, and even though I haven't played extents of Diamond, I honestly believe that Zarya's ultimate is one of the best ultimates in team fights. Next up is Reinhardt's ultimate. We are now. I'm definitely gonna put this impactful. I wouldn't say game changing because there are some things to counter it, but definitely it's not like somewhat passable. It's definitely like in the middle ground between game changing and somewhat impactful. And in my honest opinion, like a good shatter can win fights, but a bad shatter straight up just makes it a waste. Next up, we have Sigma's ult, and this one is somewhat impactful depending on the team comps. If you're fighting against a team that has no defensive ults and the tanks are just off tanks, Sigma ult is actually great. But most people in Diamond would run a shield and a Lucio or Zenyatta if they feel like they need a little more damage. And those two defensive ults literally destroy Sigma's ult. Next up, we have Supercharger from your good girl Orisa, and this one is somewhat impactful. The one counter with this ultimate that everyone does that literally works every time is destroy the ultimate. I feel like this is one of the few ultimates that literally can just be ruined by just destroying it. And once that ultimate is destroyed, it's a waste, and it takes forever to get the ultimate back. And with that, we are finished with the tanks. So and I am so sorry for sneezing in y'all ears. I hope you enjoyed. Next up, we are doing the DPS all, and we're gonna do Doomfist's ultimate. This one, in my opinion, is straight up useless. This ultimate is used in two ways in comp that I ever see. This is to secure and kill on a healer, which sometimes doesn't always work unless it's an Ana, because Ana's the only one that doesn't have an ability to straight up get out of a fight. Or this is used to run away. Like, I have probably seen once where this wiped out enough people to be game changing in a team fight. And with that, that's where it's going. Next up is Dragon Blade, and this is definitely, I'm just gonna be safe and put in the middle ground because, in my opinion, Dragon Blade is probably extremely game changing. The problem is defensive ults, and also the fact that everyone is smart enough to shoot a Genji when he's ulting, so he doesn't get on his streak. And the reason why I'm putting it somewhat impactful is the reason if I put it situational, like I know people would freak out, and also I don't believe it's situational. but I also don't feel like it's impactful enough to do anything. All right, next up is I legit forgot the name of Hanzo's ult. Let's just call it the Dragon Arrow. Dragon Arrow is straight up just good in my opinion. Just like Genji's, it's pretty somewhat impactful. But to counter it, simply you just have to walk out of its way, or if you really want to be typical, you could combo with Zarya. But we are basing the alts by themselves in a team fight and not like comboing, because if we did that, a lot of alts would be in game changing. Alright, next up is Junkrat's Riptire, which is very impactful. Now, you may be wondering, why would I put an ultimate that could be destroyed in impactful, but not Dragon Blade? Here's the reason. The reason why Dragon Blade is in there is I forgot to mention that, stun mechanics are in the game, and basically one good flashbang, or one shield bash, or one charge, one earth shatter, just any stun in the game that you can name literally ruins the flow of a Genji player. And the only way they can get their dash back is by killing someone, and they have to hope to God they don't get healed output. A Riptire literally almost guarantees a kill. Like, unless they pop a defensive ult on a Riptire, which I don't see, this can guarantee 2 to 3 to maybe 1 kill, which makes it very impactful. Next up is Deadeye, one of my favorite DPS players to play. However, I do think it's somewhat impactful. The reason being is simply Deadeye. Don't get me wrong, Deadeye is super dangerous, though the counters to it is simply walking behind cover, defensive ult, which in team fights, you're always going to have defensive ults activate. Like, when an offensive ult is popped. Now, Deadeye straight up can be countered by a lot of things. Not only that, you are absolutely hopeless when you're there. You stand still. You cannot move when you use this ultimate. Therefore, it's pretty impactful, but not impactful enough to go in the impactful category. Next up is Blizzard, and this one is absolutely game-changing. The ability to freeze the entire enemy team in a matter for a few seconds is enough to get enough critical damage to just wipe out a team. Like, I'm sorry, but this ultimate, in my opinion, is probably one of the best offensive ultimates in the game. Next up is Bob, and this is definitely impactful. Having an extra character to fight in the team fight, turning a 6v6 to a 6v7, and the fact that he does high damage output makes him very strong. His one weakness, of course, is, he stands still, and Asambra could straight up just ruin the Bob. But besides that, he's very impactful. Next up is Barrage, and this is pretty situational, simply because Pharah is free situational. The only time she wasn't situational is when they banned all the hit scans, and she was basically had free reign, unless the Ashe was good enough. And with that just basically makes Barrage situational, because Pharah is situational. Next up is Death Blossom, and it really this one is also situational. The reason being is you have to be super careful when you use Death Blossom, because you have to keep manage of a few things. Do they have a diva? Do they have a Sigma? Do they have a Genji who is really good at deflecting? Do they have their stuns on cooldown? Do they have a Roadhog hook? Do they have this? Do they have that? If they have any of these factors, your Death Blossom's ruined. However, if they don't have any of this definitely would be game changing, because that ultimate would shred the entire team. But because of the fact that it is just made to ruin people's day, I'm putting it situational. Next up is Echo, and I'm just going to put her in someone impactful, simply because, okay, so when she was first shown, her ultimate was broken. It was so broken. If you got a trait, there was an enemy tracer on the enemy team, you straight up could get 5 to 6 pulse bombs, which basically guarantees a team wipe simply because there's no possible way they could have stopped you. However, ever since the nerfs and the reduction to the alt charge and all that, don't get me wrong, it's still pretty high. It really depends on who you become. Don't get me wrong, like getting your ultimate just like that is very impactful. But remember, it depends on who you become and if the game. And I'm just simply just putting it someone impactful just because there hasn't been enough time for it to show its colors and bloom. Symmetra, definitely impactful simply for the fact that you get a giant barrier to protect your team. So simply if you Symmetra like cuts off half of their team, like basically if 6 people are on one side and 3 people are on that same side and the 3 are on the other, you have a chance to potentially get rid of those 3, and it can absolutely disrupt the flow of battle for your enemies who have to fight Symmetra. Not only that, playing the shield basically makes it almost impossible for the enemy team to kill you. Therefore, I'm putting impactful. Tactical visor is, I'm gonna say it's somewhat and let me fix that. I'm gonna say it's very somewhat impactful, simply because you don't see a lot of soldiers in comp, and also like defensive ultimates and barriers are its weakness, and also Diva. Diva's a big weakness to Tactic Visor, or she counters it. My bad. So I'm saying it's somewhat impactful because it has few weaknesses, and also it's not. It's definitely not impactful because it doesn't affect the flow of battle that much. However, it's definitely not situational. EMP. In my opinion, this is absolutely impactful or game changing, even simply because EMP literally can. Actually, no, I'm saying it's game changing. This ultimate literally disables all abilities who are affected by it. So if the enemy team is running, let's put a scenario. You go in, Sombra pops the EMP, bam, everything's gone. You Nobody can do a thing to fight back. All they can do is retreat and regroup, which gives you time to either push the cart or capture the objective and get a little time on it. So that's why it's game changing. It forces people to either retreat or fight with no abilities. Next up is Torbjorn's ultimate. This is situational because Torb is situational in its own right. And not only that, Torbjorn's ultimate is only used as a last resort to say like getting people off the point or blocking an entrance and all that. Like you never really see a Torbjorn ultimate being used effectively. It's mostly used, or not effectively, offensively. It's definitely never used that way. It's always used defensively, and that's why I make it situational. Next up is next up is Tracer Bomb. I don't know the names today. This one's definitely impactful. This one, if a Tracer is getting hit or ultimate pretty quick, that means it's a good Tracer, and in Diamond, Tracers are decent enough to know how to Tracer Bomb. And because of that, they will straight up usually go for healers, and getting rid of the healers is always good because that basically gives you an advantage. And yeah, and if they're grouped up, that also means that you get it. Now, Widow's tactical. This one's situational. I would even say it's useless and probably one of the worst ultimates in the game currently because it's just countered so easy. Because if the Widow dies, ultimate's gone. The reason why it's situational is simply because having wall hacks, actually in that case it would be somewhat impactful. Never mind, don't listen to me. This one is somewhat impactful simply for the fact that you get wall hacks, basically, for your entire team. Now this could be used, depending on how this is used, this is very effective. And usually in Diamond, a Widow is good enough and doesn't is smart enough to, retreat when she's getting dived. So, yeah. Next up is Bastion's configuration. And this one I had the most trouble with because honestly, Bastion is situational and requires so much to be good. However, his configuration is super powerful. Like, it's one shots any squishy. It destroys tanks impacts. It does, if I am correct, 220 damage. I could be wrong. Comment below if you know what its actual damage is. But that is huge, and that could actually turn the tide of battle. However, for the fact that Bastion is situational, and the fact that it requires so much to be even good in the first place, he is situational. Alright, and that was my tier list for team fights. Next up, I will be doing solo, ultimates. This is basically, those, you know, pop it, don't drop it, I guess, situations. Or let's say, like your team is losing the fight and an ultimate is popped. Like, let's say you're down 3 people and there's 6, and like someone pops their ult. That's how, and see how effective it would be. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will talk to you all next one. Have a good night, guys.